Hello, welcome to this lecture video. I'm teacher Melay and let's talk about problem definition. So in this video, we are going to consider discussion of what is a research problem, what are the scope and the limitations, and also theoretical and conceptual framework of this study. And we are going to end up with the definition of terms. These are the parts that we can see in chapter number 1. In the previous video, we already discussed what is the content of the introduction or the rationale or the reason behind the conduct of the study. So after stating the rationale or the introduction, the next part is to state the statement of the objectives or the problem. But what is a research problem? So it is a statement, as mentioned in the previous video. It can be in a declarative or interrogative form about the area of the concern. So as mentioned, we commonly use the word statement of the objectives if it is stated in declarative form, and it is a statement of the problem when it is stated in interrogative form. So actually, there is no right or wrong in terms of why did you use problem and why did you use objectives, when in fact both are objectives. The main reason is we just wanted, of course, that these are consistent throughout the paper. Like for example, you're not going to place a declarative statement in the problem number 1, while in your problem number 2, it is in interrogative form. So just for consistency, you're going to use either declarative for all your problems or interrogative for all your problems. And that the word that we use now, as mentioned, for declarative is a statement of the objectives, and if it is interrogative form, it is the statements of the problems. And it must be a well-defined statement. A well-defined, which means that it can be solved through quantitative data or qualitative data. It must be clear and is specific, especially if it is specific problems. Now, it should also address the existing gap identified in the research or the study. So if you watch the previous video, so we discussed there what are the content of the rationale or the reason behind the conduct of the study. So it must contain now some informations, what is known about the topic, and also what is the gap. And lastly, how will you solve the problems, or how will you solve the existing gap through your study? So which means the research problem must address the existing gap. Okay. So aside from what is the research problem, it is also very important to state the scope and the limitation. It is also part of problem definition. So if you're going to be specific with this problem, so what are the limitations or what will be the scope? So in the scope and the limitations, we are actually placing the whereabout of the study, which means we have to state what will be the focus of this study and what will be the limitations. So it can be by mentioning what are the specific problems. So it will be limited only to those specific problems, especially that in general problem, the general problem is usually very broad, that you have to limit it. And where will the study be conducted, and who will be the respondents? How did you limit your sample? Usually, it is very ambitious or it is very difficult to conduct a study wherein you're going to involve the whole population. So if you're not going to include the whole population, how will you limit your respondents or your subjects or participants of the study? And then, how will you answer the research problem. So will you answer the research problem using survey questionnaire? Are you going to craft a test? Are you going to adapt tests? And the result will be based on this questionnaires or research instruments. And are you going to conduct interview and all other, as mentioned, whereabouts of the study? And of course, what is the duration of the conduct of this study and when will it be conducted? So all of these are parts of the scope and the limitations. Now, let us also move to conceptual framework and theoretical framework. So what's the difference between these two? So let's start with conceptual framework. What is a conceptual framework? So it serves as a blueprint of the study, which means it is the plan. So it explains theories or concepts. So if you're going to involve purely theories, so it is actually theoretical framework. But if you're going to also integrate some concepts, then it becomes conceptual frameworks. So it is argument why the topic matters and why it is appropriate and rigorous to conduct it. So that is according to Ravitch and Regan in 2017. According to Miles et al. In 2014, it is graphically and in narrative form of key factors or variables and the presumed relationship. So it is where you're going to present the key factors. So it is usually the terminologies found or the main variables in your study. Okay, so it is also a logical conceptualization, which means that it is the study must be metacognitive, reflective, and operational element of the entire research process. Now, what is a theoretical framework? So in terms of theoretical framework, let us just relate it first. If the conceptual framework could be a product of your own thinking, it is because, of course, you are explaining all the main variables, presenting the presumed variable, so it is the product of your own thinking. For theoretical framework, it comprises other people's theoretical perspective that you interpret as relevant to your research, and in particular, it is helpful in your data analysis and interpretation. So to have a scholarly foundation for all your sense making of the meaning contained in your data. So that is according to Newman, 1997. So theoretical framework provides a structure for what to look for in the data, for how you think or how what you see in the data fits together, and it helps you to discuss your findings more clearly in the light of existing theories. Okay, so let's also move now to the definition of terms. So this is also part of your chapter 1. In defining terms, it must be conceptually defined and operationally defined. So it is conceptually defined. So this for the meaning or definition found in dictionary or internet references or sources. Well, for operational definition rather, so this is now the definition. You define it based on how it is used in the study. And what are the terms that you need to define? So terminologies in the title, your main variables. It can be terminologies found in your general and specific problems or objectives. So it is, or it refers actually to all main variables of your study. So for the reference materials, okay, so thank you for watching.